let's talk about responsible AI. Actually, Jerome, when we discussed this panel, you had a lot of great stats that you were throwing out there. AI is a $7 trillion plus business. There is a $43 billion annual racial divide at risk. So, obviously AI can have a very positive effect if done correctly, but it can also have quite the opposite effect. But I'm just gonna call you the data guy on stage. So let's start with a little bit of data that you wanna share with us that's been impactful as you've been doing all your research.
So first off, I'm extremely grateful to be here with all of you. Just all the knowledge that's been shared today, all of the resources, the frameworks, the urgency and the calls to action from a political standpoint. Just first and foremost, grateful to be here. So a few numbers. So last year, Cisco launched an assessment called the Cisco AI Readiness Index. These numbers might not be surprising, but roughly 97% of enterprises have indicated that generative AI is top of mind for them. The other number that we need to know is that only 14% of organizations, and I'm sure many of our organizations fall in that same category, are not prepared and they're not AI ready. So as we cascade that down into what that means for DE&I and what that means for the overall opportunity, I love the numbers that you shared. Everyone knows that generative AI is a $7 trillion up to $15 trillion industry, and the number that alarms me is the number that you shared, that $43 billion are at stake for the racial economic divide. And what does that mean? That means these are folks who look like many of us that may not have an opportunity to build a large language model, who may not be able to feed data into a vector database and kind of talk through the cultural nuances. But on the other end of the spectrum, it can create new opportunities for these communities as well when we do include them, when we do think about accessibility, and seeing that as an innovative approach that can bridge the divide and connect so many different people. So I'm sure we can share some more numbers, but just at the highest levels, this is not just about business profitability, shareholders, stock market, etc. This is fundamentally about people. It's fundamentally about connecting us and bringing us together and creating a whole nother reality that we haven't even imagined yet.
Any other thoughts on that particular? We can keep going. So, Kenyetta, I'm picking on you two first because those folks have actually had a chance to speak today so far. But as an educator, I know you're thinking through how you navigate this space and make it less complicated and how to educate. And can you just give us a gist of some of the work you're doing and where you feel it's important to focus?
So some of the work that I'm doing now is I'm running a pilot program in collaboration with North Carolina Central to teach juniors and seniors how to basically be product managers, right? To learn how to be producers. I think this is a space where one of my goals anyway is to be able to use these tools to help students have skills that they can leverage, right, to get to choice. And getting to choice meaning I choose to be at this job, I choose to actively participate in entrepreneurship in a specific way, and I'm using product development and product management as a way to do that, right? Because if you can think critically about the problem and then figure out what tools you can use to build, you're unstoppable at that point, right? There's no barrier to the things that you can think about. So I'll just give you an example of what that looks like. So the week before last, one of the things we taught was rapid prototyping, right? And so I brought in somebody to really go over what that process looked like. Now, mind you, of course, everybody, these I will say children, because I'm 41, right? So anybody that's between the ages of 18 and 22, you are a kid to me. All right, you are a child. So I say my kids, but really they're adults. Anyway, so these students, right? They, of course, everybody's interfaced with ChatGPT, right? But what does it look like to think bigger than that, or how to use these tools to think about problems, right? So the first 3 weeks they learned empathy mapping, they learned problem identification, they learned the pains and gains, how to look at data and say how to converge, all those things in design think, right? But to see them learn rapid prototyping, and they sat there, right? And they sat there and they watched as the speaker we had just go through using Claude to build out code, right? And then using Wizard, now owned by Miro, to look at design. So they looked at the Wizard design, did a little screenshot of that, stuck it in Claude, start building some code. And if you ever seen students just sit there and look at it and just, students stare at stuff, all right? They make you feel like, do you get it? Do you get it? So I was looking at them and I was like, y'all get it? But slowly out of sight of my eye, I see people downloading Claude, right? Downloading Wizard, right? And they're asking me these questions. And they're like, so is this the right one? I'm like, yeah, that's good, okay. See what y'all talking about. All of a sudden, they built 3 rapid prototypes in 10 minutes. And it was 3 rapid prototypes from their own problems that they wanted to solve. It wasn't a problem that we gave them. And it came out of nowhere because I didn't even expect that. I expected them to sit there, take a little note, look at me crazy, don't ask me that many questions. And that's not what I got. What I got was them thinking about problems they could use technology to solve. That's what I got, right? I had a girl in the front who was like, oh my God, I could have used this in my internship last year? Yes, that's exactly what you could have done. And then somebody raised their hand and was like, I built a rapid prototype. Let me show you what it looked like. Let me build my website out. Fully functional rapid prototype with code, right? I had a young man who then decides a project that we're now going to work on for the rest of the 3 weeks that I have them, that he's going to work on the field to work out that problem because it was just that good. So when you start, the goal is helping them understand how to leverage this technology, right? To see what they can actually do with it, to think bigger, to do bigger things. And that's what we're seeing when we're getting with AI, right? Is the ability to problem solve faster, not just to use the technology, but to solve real problems. And we all know there's 2 types of problems. Problems that people want to be solved and problems people pay to be solved. I know it's a long-winded answer, but you guys had to hear that because I'm super proud of them, right? But that's what I'm thinking about. Is how can I empower them to think bigger than what's in front of them and to use technology to do that.
Love it. More quotable moments. Okay, so earlier, and just fair warning, I'm probably coming to Emily with this question. Earlier we were talking about bias in AI. I mentioned a conversation I was having with a friend this morning about how we live in a society that will accept 35,000 traffic deaths per year with human drivers, but won't accept 5,000 deaths per year with AI drivers. We've created this AI versus the humans kind of ecosystem, I guess I should say. And to quote somebody even more famous, Dr. Fei Li from the conference you just came back from, there is nothing artificial about artificial intelligence. Humans are at the center, and AI needs to be governed by people. It's all very true. And so these questions about the responsibility and the ethics in AI and, not just the bias that gets in there or, what role do we play? Who's responsible for what? Are companies responsible? We all saw that, many of us saw that tragic New York Times article about the young 14-year-old boy who took his life because he was having this relationship with who he named Denitresse, his AI chat bot that he had created. The corporation, I won't name them here, but they were named in the article. There's now a lawsuit. His mother is a lawyer. She's going after that company. Is it the companies? Is it the developers? Is it the consumers? Is it individuals? Is it our role as a community to empower individuals to be responsible? Where does the responsibility lie, and what role do we play?
I'm very curious to know what the other panelists think about this question, but in my mind, the answer is yes. You say, is it governments, is it companies, is it individuals, is it consumers? Yes. And I think this is a big enough challenge for us as humanity, not to sort of go there, but I think it's going to be a big enough challenge for us that we need all of the people looking at this problem and working together to solve it. And so that's sort of my take on it, but I'm curious if any of the other panelists have thoughts.
Please.
Chime in. This is something that requires everyone to be a part of. Public sector, private sector, academia, government. I think we all play a role and have different levels of involvement that are needed to make sustainable change. A few weeks ago, I was at the Responsible AI Leadership Summit hosted by Credo AI, which is a fascinating AI company that's focused on AI governance and really helping people understand what are the standards that are out there, NIST, ISO, what's happening with the EU AI Act, and how is that fundamentally trailblazing for other countries that are kind of using that look and see how that manifests. But the ultimate sentiment at the conference was that everyone had a role. It was senators. We had board members that were there represented, and it was fascinating to hear that boards are only allocating 15 minutes out of their 4-hour board meetings to AI and the impact, and they fully recognized that it was an issue that had to be solved for. And now tech committees, governance committees, and all sorts of task forces are now being built to think about humanity and how do we keep humans at the center of these technologies, and understand the unintended consequences of these technologies that we're building rather rapidly. So in short, I think it's public sector, private sector, academia, government, all these different institutions, whether it's the United Nations or whomever, to come together and solve this amazing opportunity to create that governance model that keeps humans in the loop and humans at the center.
And I'll just, as the least tech person on this panel, I will also say that it's the responsibility of every single person. It's the responsibility of my 60-year-old mom who just left,
right,
who feels uncomfortable even having this conversation. Everything's going over her head. It's her responsibility, too, to be engaged in the conversation, to ask questions, to be concerned about what's going on around her. And for those who do understand, it's then our responsibility to open the door, to make it understandable, to translate it into regular, everyday language so that everyone's voice can be heard. Because that's what we're going to end up missing. If it's only those who understand the technology who are having the conversation, then we're missing a really critical piece, multiple critical pieces. And so we have to figure out, how do we speak it in a way that the 75-year-old or the person who has no interest in technology, my 6-year-old who just wants to go run around the island 25 times. Sorry, sit down. But how do we make it so they get it and they can start asking the questions that we wouldn't think to ask because we're approaching it from a different perspective?
I think that brings up a good point, because I might be the second least technical person on the stage outside of you. I have no technical background at all. I just know enough technical to be dangerous. Okay. I just want to call BS. That's really my whole goal, right? But I think that's where education is important. I think people talk about AI at such this high level. So what's happening is that people think that they have to digest AI as if they're a developer, right? So people think that they have to build it themselves, or they have to understand every large language model and all the technical terminology that's around it. The models were built for regular people to be able to use, right? So we need to start talking about them in spaces that's regular, right? Also redefining. I think I had this conversation with somebody at an event I went to. Is one comment was made that said we want everybody to be a developer, right? Language matters. When you say developer, that actually means something very technical to somebody, right? You have a technical subject matter expertise. We need to find different language around how do we say I can build an application and don't have to be technical in order to make that happen. How do we start redefining those type of activities, right? So that people can feel included into the space. Because what's happening is that the language is so technical, it excludes people thinking that they have to be technical in order to participate, right? So like when I teach the students, I also teach business leaders. So let's take it down a couple notches, people. We don't need to be a developer. I'm not a developer, right? What problem do you need to be solved? How can we critically think about the application of technology? Right? Technology delivers value. It's not the valuable piece. You should be able to articulate your value without technology, just FYI.
Exactly, and please do. We've had at least 2 talks here today talk about the contributions, how everybody is contributing to community, and that the technical contributions, unfortunately in the world where we live, get valued or at least have a perception of a value that's higher than the other types of contributions. And so I love Elizabeth's talk about chaos, building the chaos community. And, we tend to apologize for saying we're not technical. And everybody that says that, by the way, is more technical than they say they are. But it's like this shame of, if you ask me a technical question and I don't get the answer right or something like that, there's no shame in that. So could we please stop apologizing for not being technical? Okay, I'll get off that soapbox. But it's really true because the contributions from community members, all kinds of contributions, are so important and so needed and so valued. Developers alone do not build communities. Takes a lot of other talent. So speaking of bringing the next generation, whether it's into tech or just getting the next generation AI fluent or at least comfortable enough to not be so dangerous or have AI not be so dangerous, most of the people here on the stage work with young people or work with younger people than also me in communities. So what are some of the things you are doing to bring this technology in a good way to the next generation?
Share a sort of a framework, and I know some folks are doing some more specific things, but when you think about pipeline and you think about expanding reach and diversifying, I think about our ability to dream, our ability to set a goal. And usually your dream is rooted in what you've seen or experienced or what's around you. So your community, your family, the media drastically influences your ability to imagine, your ability to dream. And so if you're in a space where you only see a limited thing, then your dreams then are nearsighted. You can only dream as far as what you've seen. And so your dreams are nearsighted, but there are creative lenses or corrective lenses for nearsightedness, just like in the physical sense, and that's access and exposure. So what Kenyetta demonstrated that she's doing with those students at Central is giving them both access and exposure to tools and the ability to expand their view of what's possible. And if you just you don't have to arm them with the how. You just have to expose them to the possibility and point them in the right direction, and then we can take it and run. And so I talk about this all the time, but even in this context, right, if we're looking from a pipeline perspective and bringing the youth and those coming behind us up, it's how do we give them more access and exposure to the things that they need? And how do you give your AI tools more access and exposure to a broader set, right? So all of those things, that access and exposure it covers the gamut of what happens that is truly the corrective lens for this nearsightedness.
I will also add to that is that we got to understand this generation, they're all about technology. So market sophistication is increased. Right. So for every generation, there's a different market sophistication. Right. So if anybody knows anything about marketing, so if you enter something into the market and people don't really know about it, market sophistication is low. The more you know about it, more competition enters the market sophistication increases. People understand it more. There's a new baseline that's already set. If we're talking about Gen Z, this generation was born with technology. This is not new to them. So we don't need to approach them as if it's something new to them because it's not. Right. So they're already interfacing with ChatGPT. They're already interfacing. We need to make sure that they can understand critically thinking and problem solving and using technology as a way to help them problem solve, right? It's how do we bridge the gap between problem solving and technology solutioning, right? That's the conversation, right? And so when you say that, right, is how do we put them in spaces where they have to critically think and then apply, right? And I think even with business leaders, if you think about corporations, a lot of what's happening right now is reactivity. Everybody's reacting. Everybody's like, oh, I want to cuss really bad, but I'm not going to. But everybody's like, oh, ish, right? We got to figure this ish out, right? And everybody's reacting. And everybody has not stood back and said, critically thinking about the problems that we as a company have and where we can apply this first, right? So I think if we take that approach, we'll do a lot better with digesting this whole AI and education thing.
One piece of it, and I know this doesn't go back to childhood education, but education in general, that I think is really important. Research has shown that there is a gap. You mentioned the racial gap. There is a gender divide in using AI tools. And so across roles and across companies, women are 20% less likely to use ChatGPT in their day-to-day job than men are. And they have done more digging into this, and the reason is because women think it's cheating, and they want to earn that knowledge. And so I think, first of all, demystifying that and leveling the playing field there. And then I also think that you mentioned, Gen Z, that they know the tools, they know the technology. That's exactly how I'm thinking about it when I'm thinking about hiring for entry-level positions. I'm looking for someone who knows way more about AI than I do, and or is interested in getting there. And then I will add the business knowledge, and I will coach them up on the context and all of that, and what to look for, and how to spot a hallucination and things like that. But I think there's going to be a really interesting sort of bi-directional learning journey in the workplace as this continues to evolve.
This question is interesting because I know it's focused on the next generation and the youth, but I really do think that this is a multi-generational journey that we're all on. I think there's a lot of things that are being done with the youth. And I'll give you two examples or two experiences. One, I chair a nonprofit called First Tech Fund, which is a 501c3 nonprofit based out of New York, and it's all about upskilling the youth from underserved communities. We really target folks that don't have internet connectivity, their parents make a certain amount of income, who ultimately need access, right, to your point. They can only be what they can see. And so most of us on the board of directors and as part of the organization are people of color. We've been intentional about how we built the board and how we sort of drive our mission, and we show these children a different reality. And what we also do is connect them with the Googles, the Microsofts, lawyers, have them do photography lessons for folks that are interested in that, but really feeding their curiosity while also introducing them to different large language models and just having them play with it and see what they actually do with it. The second experience that I'll share with all of you is a personal one. And I'm always thinking about my family. I'm always thinking about how do we ensure that no one is being left behind. And I have a very strong relationship with my mother. I talk to her every day. And my first experience with ChatGPT was November of 2022. And fast forward a year later, I get a call from my mom, and she's like, "Mijo, what is ChatGPT? What is this all about?" And I was almost in tears because our worlds were coming together, and she wanted to have this experience that many of us already had a year prior. And she's like, I'm struggling to write this email, and she's an immigrant from Mexico, and she's like, "Oh, my grammar and this." I'm like, "No worries, Mom." So we had a whole workshop session, an afternoon, to talk about ChatGPT and how to use it and how to, in her mind, how to sound professional. And it's something that may seem that simple, but it's that one seed that was planted that will allow her and all of those in her office now to have a different reality. So I'll just close with this question by saying this is a multi-generational journey that we're all on. And it's not just about empowering the youth and the next generation, but it's all generations.
Yeah, I think we have to think about AI literacy the way we thought about financial literacy and other kinds of things that are so important that if you just don't get, you are left behind and you can't catch up. There is generational wealth here happening. And so I think we do all have a responsibility for, to educate the world with AI literacy and educate ethically. I think one of the things also that came out of that conference, using evidence-based approaches to AI exploration and moving away from speculative approaches. How do we actually use the data? How do we use it correctly? But there's this starvation for the education. And I run a very large user group out of the San Francisco Bay Area, mostly based on Kubernetes, but also other cloud-native, open source technologies. And I've been running this user group since before Kubernetes, almost 15 years now. And about a year and a half ago, I just decided that every meetup I'm going to run is going to be based on AI, because everybody was so starved for knowledge, and the rooms were packed. I mean, you couldn't get and all types of Gen AI, just so many different aspects of it. And so that's where a lot of our community was going. And now these startups are popping all over South of Market. San Francisco is packed again with new energy, and it's a lot around AI and medical AI. Steve Jobs' son is creating this great company using AI in medicine. We were told at our company at Intuit, if you're not using AI 6 times a day, then you're not doing it right. I mean, you're basically behind already if you're not using this technology. But where, and I know you've touched about this a little bit already today, but so where would you send people to go to get the training, to get the information, to get the education that they need if they don't happen to have a company that they're working for that is slamming it down their throats?
I think you need to really think about your own career and what you hope to get out of interacting with AI. I think, there are plenty of resources that are just baseline understanding. Coursera has free courses. Most of the top universities in the country, Ivy League universities, have free courses that you can take about AI. And so I think once you get past that sort of foundation level, then you need to start thinking about, okay, what are the use cases in my day-to-day life, in my work, in my contributions to open source, whatever it may be, and then start to find the experts in that, because it is very much dependent on what your use case is. Once you get past the basics, that go and find someone who you admire who's doing it, and whether they're writing about it, speaking about it, whatever, even if they're not, reach out to them, try to connect with them, try to learn from them, because I think it really is the rising tide lifts all ships, and this is something everybody's on a journey. Nobody has it figured out. The people building this technology don't even have it all figured out. And so don't be afraid to be that person who doesn't have the answers.
Why don't you ask ChatGPT?
Ask ChatGPT how to learn about
Pretty
AI.
much.
Oh my gosh, that would be like when you take a picture in the mirror and then there's another mirror and it's exactly. It might just break itself.
It's perfect. Can I chime in quickly
please.
too? So I think I might be the only person who doesn't work for a large company. So as a person who is not the techie and had to figure this out a little bit on my own, it's anyone heard the phrase "move in silence"? Don't let your right hand know what the left hand's doing. Anybody that resonate? Yeah, I see my people. So we have been told to move in silence, and the secret is stop doing that. Yeah. Open your mouth, right? Say, what's this ChatGPT? What's Bard? How do I use? Who's using this? Who else is doing this? Just say it out. As soon as you say it, you're going to be swarmed with other people who are going to say, well, here's a resource, here's a tool, or I took this training, or I'll walk you through it. I remember 2 years ago, I was trying to figure out Google Analytics for my job, for my business. And I said, I haven't quite figured out Google Analytics. And I called my friend, and she says, well, I work for Google and I know how to do this, and here, just get on the Zoom and I'm going to do it for you. Bet. Say less. Open your mouth. Just open your mouth and then go, and then stop being afraid and just play in it. Push a button. How do I make this? I'm thinking about doing this. How do I try this? And you'll start to find some other things. So that, yes, there are some formal ways that you can do it, but the first step is just own it. Own that I'm interested in it and I don't know it. Let me own it and let me open my mouth so the help comes.
So I'm glad you said that too about the right way. I think you start going down the class rabbit hole, and you're not writing the prompts correctly. Mm-hmm. You're not doing this right. You're not doing that right. It gets daunting when you start thinking about everything that you need to learn about AI and where to start. I actually would probably start with a problem first. Me personally, sometimes me trying to learn something new, I just go down a rabbit hole, y'all. Next thing you know, I got a little curriculum plan. It's wild. I don't finish majority of it. And, it just becomes problematic, right? And then I get overwhelmed. It's just a lot to go into. I might be neurodivergent. I'm not going to even lie to y'all, because when you were speaking to me today, I was just like, you said normally 52 things, and you said 1,500. I've related. I was like, we might be one and the same at this point. But start with something that's really extremely basic and just go talk to a ChatGPT or a Claude just to see what it's going to throw you, right? So just start with a problem that you have and see what kind of output. I give my students, the reason they did so well is because they literally just talking to it. I was like, all right, we're going to find a problem. They just started thinking like, oh, I seen this problem. And they just started prompting it. I didn't show them any formal way to prompt. I didn't give them anything. I gave them They had a light bulb moment, right? So start there. Don't try to digest it all at one time. You don't need to be the expert. A lot of us experts we might be a page or two ahead of you. All right. So like, just be okay with failing, right? I think that's where we all, we're not used to that, right? Let's start talking about it more. It's okay to fail. Don't digest it. People of color, people in this room, we oftentimes have a shame with failure, right? So that means we have to do it right. If we're going to practice, it has to be right. It does not have to be right. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to any of that. You need to make sure you're doing the best, not the right. Best with the information you have at the time. And then you just make another damn decision if it don't work out, right? Your goal is to make decisions to move forward, right? So with forward comes failure.
Well, maybe don't think of it as failure. Think of it as education and learning.
Yeah.
Just to rebrand that in your mind.
Can I add one?
Please, yeah.
Just a simple thought. One thing that I do is I follow quite a few influencers in the space, whether it's on Instagram, on LinkedIn, or wherever. So as you figure out your use case or the challenge that you want to solve, or what AI agent you want to use. I mean, I've been kind of raving about Anthropic's new computer use for those of you that are kind of following what's happening with Anthropic and being able to remote access your computer and have the large language model actually do all of these things for you, build a website, buy a plane ticket, whatever the case may be. Well, my whole point is follow those people that you can resonate with, that can communicate in the way that works best for you, and share that with your community on your platforms. And we would be amazed by how many folks resonate with those same people within our network. So that's another sort of passive way to learn in this space.
Okay, I promised we were going to let you ask your questions. We only have 2 mics, so I can't really run around with one. So ask your question loudly, and then I will repeat it for the recording. Yes, this is being recorded. Probably should have mentioned that at the beginning of the day. Oh, well, sorry. So questions. Okay, first question right here.
I wonder if you guys have
Oh, be careful. Please be careful.
Okay. I wonder if you guys have can comment on the lawsuit for parents suing a school to try to get the grade change of their teenager that got a 0 because apparently it was proven that they use AI generative for their work or whatever, their submission at school, and they got a 0 grade, and it's impacting his college application and all that stuff. So, what's your comment, on I guess the school point of view of giving 0 grade when I guess homework are made using generative AI?
So first things first, AI detectors are extremely inaccurate. So just so we all know that, I think that really savvy educators are embracing this as a tool. I also think that there are a lot of, under-resourced, underpaid educators out there who are figuring this out too and have no idea what to do with it. And so I think it's really complicated, and I think it's certainly shouldn't go against that one educator for working on it and figuring it out. But I think, we're all figuring it out together. But
So are we saying it's plagiarism? I mean, is that part of your question?
I think there's a lot of background that is needed for that particular case. That the school had its rules that you should not use AI, and the students there was some guideline around that the AI was not approved.
Okay, so if the guidance already published, AI is not approved, the school had already.
Be adapted to 2024 and the technology that is out there.
Yeah, going forward, going forward, absolutely, it has to be very clear what's allowed and what isn't.
Yeah, but I think it's complex, right? I think people are still trying to figure this out, figure out what that looks like for students, for educators. How do educators use it with students? How are students using that? What level of critical thinking is still involved? Because now we're talking about we want kids to critically think and all of that thing. I think it's complex and loaded, right? And it's too soon to try to define depending on the context.
Yeah, so the teachers are already overworked, underpaid. How are we training our teachers? How are we helping our teachers incorporate this tech savviness that is going to be so necessary?
I'll answer that one. I think one that we're both sort of a part of and how we met. So UNC has an incubator called Carolina Innovate, and it's a fascinating model, right? They bring local corporations, they bring startup founders together, they bring academics together, all in a space, and almost on a monthly basis we'll come in, we'll talk about what are the key trends, what are the things that people are talking about. We just had an AI versus humans networking session where we had a fascinating conversation about whether we should embrace it, should we slow it down. But my point is having more spaces where you have sort of that cross-pollination between what's happening in the corporate sector and what's happening in academia. And we can help each other in saying, hey, you might want to think about tailoring the curriculum around X. This is what we're hiring for right now. And vice versa, the educators can say, well, these are the skills and the capabilities that our students are having, and this is what we're training. And it becomes more of a dialogue, especially for the hiring managers who may not necessarily know what the curriculum is for that particular school. So the more we can have these opportunities to cross-pollinate and cross-educate, I think that will bridge the divide between the two.
Yeah. Question here?
Maybe tied to the question about teachers and so forth. It used to be that you'd have tests that you could use calculators on and tests that you couldn't. So I would never expect that the world would not have tests that you weren't allowed to use calculators on. So I really wish, and this is maybe the question, to me the term AI has just gotten so overloaded, it's
Sure.
meaningless. Because I could type 2 plus 2 into my calculator, and it's like, do I believe 4? Or I could ask ChatGPT, which probably would not be a good use of ChatGPT, and then it's like, do I believe the answer? And it's about, what are you using the tool for? And is it the appropriate tool? And did the teacher allow me to use it? So my question out of all of that is, could you recast AI into something that makes it more meaningful for normal people, that could improve on a lot? And I feel like it's a little overblown for what it really is, but again, I've been in technology for a long time.
Okay, I'll try to summarize that a little bit. Back in the day when you could use calculators for tests, but there was a time when you couldn't use calculators for tests. I won't tell you what era I grew up in, but my math's pretty good because I didn't get to use calculators. But now, so will there be, maybe you can use AI, maybe you can't, except for when you put 2 and 2 in your calculator, it says 4, and when you put 2 and 2 in ChatGPT, I mean, who knows what you're going to get, right? So, yeah. So the term, your question was around the term AI, or maybe generative AI, and how we're using these terms, but maybe we need some more definition or to requalify the term, recast the term. I think you used that. Did I get the question?
That sounds right.
Enough? Okay.
Could you recast the term?
Recast the term,
Make it meaningful.
and to make it more meaningful.
I think you have some standardization around AI in general, right? I don't necessarily think you need recasting of the name itself, because that's just more confusing. But I do think it's just like business, right? If something new is introduced in business, 9 out of 10 times you need to get back to the fundamentals, right? I feel like when we have something new in technology, we need to get back to the fundamentals. What are the fundamentals that's building this thing so that people have a general understanding and foundational knowledge of that? What is foundational knowledge of AI that people need to understand that, right? So then you can start to say, all right, we're all making decisions or coming from a place of understanding of the same foundational knowledge.
Do you want to say more, or are we taking more questions? We can probably take about 2 more questions. Okay, you had your hand up first.
Hi. Given the rapid advancements of AI, what do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for businesses to integrate AI responsibly in their company and decision making?
Given how fast AI is moving, what are the challenges for corporations to integrate AI to help with their decision making?
So I think the biggest challenge is education and literacy, because people know the business problems, the use cases that they need to solve, and often business leaders really don't understand the basics, like you were talking about. So I think that that's an enormous challenge. I think that having AI guidelines or policies, things like that, is very important, especially when you're dealing with business data. And because studies have shown people are bringing this stuff to work, whether the company is providing it or not, they're bringing their own. So if you just ban it outright, people will still do it. They just won't tell you. And so giving them information on this is what's safe to share with AI and this is what's not. This is proprietary to us, and we are not willing to share that with these types of AI models. Maybe it's, we have an internal, deployment or whatever. So I think that those are some of the challenges, but the most important challenge, and something that I think everyone who is up to speed or at any level up to speed on AI can help with, is education and training.
You want to yell? I don't know. I can't jump down. Give you a mic.
She wants the mic, I'm sorry.
He is training for an Ironman. It's the only reason I'm letting him do this.
Oh yeah, we covered that. This is not a question. It's just hi everyone. Just a theme, and I wanted to thank you guys for. I heard it from each of you, and I think it's vital that we call it out. I think it's generative and also really important to notice that people, brave leaders in the space, whether you're tech or not, each of you showed a reverence and a honoring of people coming to your mother, your whoever, right? Coming and saying, I am delighted that you're investigating. I am honored that you're asking these questions. I love that we're asking questions and solving problems and bringing people across time and space, people across ages. I think it's not a question, but I think it's vital that we, in forums like this, where we have so many experts and so much considerable talent, that we notice that people are like, look, I'm a lot, I know a lot, and I'm, all of that. And I'm so happy that my mom is trying to figure this out. I am so happy to have the opportunity to guide students, because I think that is going to advance the conversation more than whatever, is on your resume, whatever projects you guys have crushed and triumphed in. I think that's really vital. So thank you for that. I think we need more of that.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Chelsea.
Yeah, no, that was awesome. Are you, okay, last, we can do it. We have, no, we're recording, so the microphone, thank you, Jerome.
No problem.
Wait, hang on, wait for the mic, Pete, please.
There you go.
First of all, 100% agree. My question is, how do you prevent DEI initiatives from being left behind in the current climate where there are big reactive projects like AI or like a fear of legal or economic repercussions?
I'm so glad you asked that. I actually had that question, so thank you for asking it. Who wants to take it?
So the first thing, if we're talking about reclassifying and rebranding, I hate to do it, but the truth of the matter is that we've been calling it DEI for a long time, but it's really just culture. It's the way we as people engage with each other. It's the way that we show up in a way that demonstrates that I actually care about you and your well-being. And so if we can stop saying that it's this buzzword, it's DEI, and it needs to sit over here, and instead we say this is the way we arm our people with what they need to be their absolute best, and how do we now integrate that into the fabric of everything we do, then we can start to address what's coming under attack. So the reason my company's not a DEI firm, we're a culture consultancy, because DEI is just a portion of that, but it's all of the things that enable us to operate at our best. And when you bury DEI and HR and all of those things, it loses its power and its ability. So let's just stop calling it that. Instead, let's get to the meat of what it is. Let's talk about what culture is, and workplace culture then is not part of your HR group. You treat it the same way you treat innovation. It's a separate group with autonomy and freedom because it touches every other part of your organization, because it's how do we optimize? What do you need to get the most out of your team? And if we think about it that way, then it can't come under attack because it's the only way that we're actually successful. It's the foundation of how we meet our goals, and it's going to be the reason when we don't meet our goals. It's going to be the reason why things fail. It's the DEI, a failure of culture, is the reason why Uber had the worst IPO. Right? It's the reason. It's going to be either the headwind or the tailwind. You decide. But if we get caught up on it's DEI and DEI is under attack, stop playing. We've been under attack the whole time. But it's because you're putting us in the wrong spot. I'm not playing over here. I'm telling you that this is what it takes for your team to do its best work. I talk about training brand new managers. When we're talking about brand new managers, I'm not saying this is DEI work. But if as a brand new manager, you don't know how to recognize the individual needs and abilities and talents and what they bring to the table of your actual team members, you can't be effective. So let's stop separating it in a way that makes it so you can keep checking the boxes. We're not checking boxes. We actually want to impact change. We want to elevate the conversations. Let's just move it a little bit. Just rebrand it and position it where it needs to be.
Amen. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you. Love it, love it, love it. I'm going to close this out with another quote that I really loved. This is why it's crucial to unite and develop what could be the defining technology of our time with the right intentions, keeping humanity at the center. By doing so, we can ensure AI serves to uplift and empower people, not overshadow them. You might recognize that because I took it from your blog. Thank you, Jerome. And thank you to everybody on the panel. Danny, can you go forward one slide, please? Because this would not be a Todd Lewis conference if I didn't put Todd Lewis's favorite word on the screen. So much gratitude, not just to Todd for creating this amazing day year after year and cultivating a space for us to have this conversation and to bring this incredible talent, but thank you to you for participating. Many of you have been here the whole time and even for years before. So really thank you. Give yourselves a hand for being here. Thank you to all the speakers, all the panelists, and I think I'm supposed to mention that from 5:30 to 7, there is a welcome social. Does anyone know where it is? Is it out in the patio like last year? Okay, Burr. Sorry, Californian here. It was cold last year too. I should have learned. Okay, so I don't know. Maybe there'll be some adult beverages to help keep you warm. But we will see you there. We will take this conversation there, at least 15 minutes from now. Thanks, Danny and crew, for keeping this thing rolling and all the different computer changes and all of that, and for everybody that was involved. Thank you so much. And with that, it's a wrap. Yay!